Hi guys, my name is Divya Pradhan and we are going to talk about classification of living things. Well, first and foremost, what is taxonomy? Because that's the first word we'll come across when we're talking about classification of living things. Taxonomy is the discipline or the science that deals with identifying, naming, and classifying of all living things. So here was this hero in our story, or the guy, a Swedish botanist, and he by the name was Linnaeus. By the way, we don't worry about the first name Carolus. We are concerned in science with the last name. So Linnaeus is something that I will hold you to. So Linnaeus came across this system called binomial system. And the bi means what? Two. So binomial system of nomenclature, we'll have two parts, a species and of course a genus. So the genus is the first part of the name and species is the second part of the name. How do we write it? Well, notice how we write. There's a system of writing it. So first, all living things have a two-part name, which is universal, which is standard, which doesn't change. The spelling is constant. So the first part is genus, the second part is species, all right? Now the way the language that they use or we use still today is of course Latin. Now how do we write it? Now if you're typing it, notice that you can type it either, you can write it all caps like this, homo. I'm using my finger, I don't have a stylus pen in here, and sapien, okay? So you can write it all caps, no problem. Or if you're typing it, you can write it homo sapien. Now remember, when you're writing it, then you underline it, okay? If you're typing it, you can italicize it like it is done here. You do not need to underline. Once again, how do you write a scientific name? There are three different styles. One, all caps. Two, if you are writing it, then the second method is the first part has to begin with an uppercase. The second, that's a species name, begins with a lowercase. You underline both parts separately, not joined. Or if you're typing it, just italicize it, right? Like the way it's written, Homo sapien. All right? Well, what about this classification? What is this classification? Well, classification, let's see. We begin with the biggest unit, and that biggest unit is called domain. So there are three domains, all right, or groups, and these domains are now divided into smaller groups called kingdom. Kingdoms are further divided into phylum. Phylums are divided into class. Class are divided into order. Orders divided into family. Families are divided into genus. And of course, genus is divided into species. So what I'm trying to explain to you is that all living things, two things happen. Well, number one, they're given a scientific name. A standard, constant, universally accepted scientific name that does not change. It is standard. Number two is that they are classified. There's a classification system. So all living things are divided into three big domains, groups. Domains are subdivided into, what did I say? Kingdom, kingdom into phylum, phylum into class, order, family, genus, species. Very easy acronym that you can follow. King, Philip, can, only, fail, general, science. So here's another definition for species. So species, we can say, is the smallest group. Now we don't call it group, we call it taxa. Okay. Or taxon. One is singular, one is plural. Okay. So the species is the smallest taxon or the taxa. And domain is the biggest taxa or the taxon. All right. So here we go. All living things, like I said, are divided into three different domains. The first one is eukarya. Oops. The second one is archaea. And the third one is bacteria or prokarya. Okay. Now notice the word "eu." Eu means true. Karya comes from the word nucleus. So eukaryotes are like you and me, have a nuclear membrane. They have a nuclear membrane. Okay, I'm just going to write NM. Prokaryotes, no NM, nuclear membrane. So if I were to draw eukarya, well, you'll have a cell. Look at the nuclear membrane, and there's a nucleolus right there. So the nucleus is well defined. There's a nuclear membrane. For a prokaryote, there is no nuclear membrane. So if there is the cell membrane, the DNA lies attached to the nuclear membrane, to the cell membrane. There is no nuclear membrane. There's no separation of the nucleus from the rest of the cell. Here, notice that the nucleus as well as the cytoplasm, which is outside, well separated, very distinct. So you can make out, there is the nucleus. Here, no nucleus. The DNA or the chromosome lies floating freely in the cytoplasm, all right, attached to the cell membrane. So like I said, here is, well, don't get scared. Here is the classification. If you were to classify corn or Homo sapiens, then this is what it is. Domain Eukarya for human beings, kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, class Mammalia, order Primates, family Hominidae, genus Homo, species. Now there's a mistake. Species is sapiens. So the scientific name is Homo sapiens. So please understand this, that the species, I'm cancelling this, is actually sapien. Okay? All right. I don't have a stylus. I'm trying to write with my finger. Corn, same thing. Domain Eukarya, kingdom Plantae, phylum Anthophyta, class Monocotyledons, order Commilinales, family Poaceae, genus Zea, and species is maize. M-A-Y-S. I'm trying to remove the Z with my finger. Alright, so here what it is this is how you classify. Of course, from this, once again, I definitely need you to know 3 different domains, breakdown of each domain into kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species, and how to write a scientific name, okay? Alright, so here are the 3 domains, bacteria, archaea, eukarya. Remember, bacteria are also called prokaryotes. They lack a nuclear membrane. They are found almost anywhere, everywhere, even on our skin, mouth, and large intestine. We'll study later, of course, that they are pathogenic and non-pathogenic. They are the good bacteria, and the not so good bacteria, or the pathogenic bacteria. Archaea are of course also prokaryotes. What is prokaryotes? They do not have a nuclear membrane, a well-defined nucleus, okay? However, these are the ones that live in extreme environments, okay? So extreme environments. An example would be very light. You know, as you can see, it's very salty environment. So they are the halophiles. The thermophiles, extremely hot temperature. The psychrophiles, very cold temperature. Acidophiles, alkaliphiles, these are all prokaryotes that live in extreme environments. So if somebody says, oh, on my skin there's an archaea, well, of course, that is absolutely wrong, because you know that for archaea to exist on your skin, your body temperature has to be like about 80 or 90 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. You know that, right? So here, what I'm trying to explain is that your body temperature is 37, so you cannot have an archaea growing on your skin. Of course not. A eukaryote or a eukarya, same thing. Here, like I explained, it has a well-defined nuclear membrane. As you can see, here is the nucleolus. Here's the cell membrane. This is the cell membrane. Here's the nuclear membrane, and that is the nucleus. All right. So again, under eukaryotes, there are 4 different kingdoms. Okay. So the first one is protista. Protista are one-celled. So here will be one-celled. And like I said, that they are unicellular to few multicellular. Well, let's say that there are only one cell. All right, forget about this part. This says few multicellular. That's more confusing because actually it's unicellular living in colonies. That's more more information than you need right now. You'll study that in higher classes. But for now, let's remember that kingdom Protista comprises of one-celled eukaryotes. Once again, what's a eukaryote? It has a nuclear membrane. Keep that in mind. Don't forget that. Okay, here are the chromosomes. That's the nucleolus. This is the cell membrane. Here's the nuclear membrane. All right, then the fungi. Fungi are all multicellular. However, what happens is, what's the most important characteristic? They decompose organisms. They are absorbers. So here, what another characteristic that I would like to add is that apart from being decomposers, remember the cell wall is made up of a substance called chitin. Very interesting. Chitin, as you know, a lot of you eat shellfishes. So here what happens, in arthropods, and also in arthropods, they have their not cell wall, but the exoskeleton is made up of chitin. So crush a beetle, you'll hear the crack noise. Well, guess what? That's chitin. Plantae, or the kingdom plants. Well, of course, they are photosynthesizers because they have the pigment called the chlorophyll. Okay. And then, of course, are the animalia. The animalia are all multicellular. They are ingesters. They do not make their own food. They do not photosynthesize. They're incapable. They depend upon other organisms for food. I guess this is the last slide, and then we are done. And I thank you for listening to me. Please make sure that you read the textbook along with watching this video. Thank you for watching once again.